What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and today I'm giving you my 5th installment of a 6-part video series. I'm going to be going through all of my personal S-tier arc weapons. These are weapons that frequent a lot of my builds. This is a list that has evolved over time with me experimenting with builds and synergies and things of that nature. I'm going to be taking you guys back into the Breakneck mission for just a very rough explanation and synopsis of all of these weapons. There's a lot of options to choose from. So I'm sure there's going to be some weapons that are on there that are going to make a lot of sense to people, and there's going to probably be some weapons on there that may make no sense to anybody. But that is the beauty of individualism in this game, is weapons that you may not think are S tier could possibly be S tier in a situation that you might find yourself in, and weapons that you have been clutching to and afraid to leave might be worth a little bit of a break from. So if you do find anything helpful in this video or you resonate with anything, please consider liking and subscribing. Also share this with a guardian who may be in need of a fresh look at arc weapons to fit build needs that they may have that they are unaware of. That some of these weapons may exist or might synergize with things that they like to do anywhere in the universe against enemies of the Traveler. So I will not have dim links in this. I will, in fact, have my Discord link, though. Any feedback is welcome, positive or negative. I expect people to debate me on these weapons that I've got, and that is completely fine. I welcome it. You guys that have been around since this channel started growing rapidly know that I'm very interactive, and I welcome all the feedback that I get. It's what's helped grow me as a content creator, and I'm hoping this video finds everybody well. Again, I really appreciate the positive vibes and the good feedback I've gotten from anybody that has chosen to chime in, whether on Discord or on the page. It's really helped me try to shape what content I come up with, as I go on. But without further ado, I'm here to bring you my S-tier arc weapons. Let's get on into it. Alrighty, getting us started, a weapon that probably needs no introduction if you've seen any of my previous build videos, Vantage Point Pulse Rifle for Arc S-tier weapons. Probably a no-brainer for some people out there, but if you are unaware, Vantage Point can roll and be enhanced with jolting feedback as well as eddy current. Jolting feedback for no other reason other than the perk itself, not stunning capabilities or anything with an artifact relation. Jolt does stun champions just by itself. The fact that you can apply that with this pulse rifle makes this an S-tier weapon. When you pair that with eddy current, which is temporarily increases reload speed and handling after sprinting or while amplified, as well as a flared magmal and an extended barrel, you have an extremely controllable weapon that's got great range, good reload speed, and will keep you amplified periodically through whatever activity that you are in. It is simply one of the best tools in terms of pulse rifles that you could have in Destiny. So if you haven't picked up a Vantage Point, or you didn't want to farm to get one, I highly recommend dedicating time, going and attempting to get a roll that has jolting feedback at a minimum. You can also have, a different barrel or magwell or whatever, but jolting feedback, if you haven't seen some of my other videos that feature this weapon, I'm telling you, it is well worth your time to go and get. Next up on list for Arc S-tier weapons, Iterative Loop, a product of Neptune and one of my favorite fusion rifles. This thing hits like a truck, has a 500 charge time, over 90 recoil direction, and can run with 2 perks that you can craft to make this weapon even better. Vol Shot and Compulsive Reloader. If you have never tried Iterative Loop, I'm telling you, this thing, if it ever comes back on the meta as far as being part of the artifact, this thing will probably not leave my inventory. It just won't. It is extremely easy to use. You can throw on a reserve mod perk, and you can essentially generate vol shot after vol shot after vol shot. It's just so much fun to use. So Iterative Loop, you can get it from Nimbus out there in Neptune running Terminal Overload. I highly recommend, if you haven't ever crafted this or haven't finished, Lightfall, to get your red borders, to get started on the journey for getting this, I recommend picking this thing up. I mean, just look at it. It's lightning everywhere. It puts out really good damage, and even from far away, I mean, you see, I'm putting out 4,000 per each round. And again, if fusion rifles end up in the meta, so to speak, on the artifact perk, or on the artifact next season, this thing is going to be rotating through my hands on a very regular basis. And I encourage you, grab one, head to Altars of Sorrow, and check it out. Alrighty, next up we've got the Trespasser sidearm. Now the Trespasser sidearm, for some reason, has fallen out of the inventory spots available in most Guardians play, but the Trespasser is still a monster at clearing ads and being a good utility weapon in any activity. Final blows with Unrepentant Super Burst automatically reload your weapon and provide an Unrepentant Super Burst. The intrinsic trait Unrepentant, reloading after defeating a target, causes the next burst to be a longer, more powerful Super Burst. You essentially can keep reusing the Super Burst over and over and over again. So if sidearms ever enter the meta as far as being usable within an artifact perk, Trespasser will undoubtedly be dusted off from most Guardians inventories right now and used much more frequently because of its high potency, its 491 rounds per minute, and its 48 round magazine and 100 recoil direction. I'm telling you, this thing is ridiculous. But one thing I would recommend, if you do start using this and you have the rapid fire setting equipped in your settings, I would recommend just tapping the trigger, getting your kill, and continue to tap the trigger, or turn the auto fire off, the rapid fire off altogether. So I'm going to proc this right now. Kill, reload, kill. Naturally, wasn't able to get the kill. You can see now I've got it procced. I'm reprocking it. I've got it reprocced again. The only caveat to this is you have to get that kill, or you don't get the continued reuse of the Super Burst, which again is why it left so many Guardians inventory, on top of it not being a super powerful weapon. But I still see this thing in Crucible, and you can see just in this little demonstration video, I struggled with getting it to proc. Not necessarily because I did anything wrong. It's just where the weapon is right now. So when sidearms do enter the meta again with additional abilities to stun champions, for example, or helping this future supposed arc ability that's going to be coming around, Bolt Charge, people are going to start leveling this thing back up. They're going to make sure they get the catalyst right. And oh, by the way, I don't have the catalyst done, but the catalyst will add reloading after defeating a target greatly increases target acquisition and aim down sight speed for a short duration. So you'll get additional buffs. This thing basically has no recoil and is extremely easy to use. So if you haven't tried, if you haven't tried the Trespasser in a while yet, I would recommend dusting it off just in case next season we're able to use this thing to stun champs, because it's going to be a powerhouse in a lot of new activities. Next up on the list for S tier arc weapons, Ergo Sum. Now, Ergo Sum can roll in a variety of elements as well as perks. My favorite role happens to also be Arc, so it's making this list. It comes with Arc Conductor, powered heavy attacks charge the wielder, enabling them to resist arc damage and chain lightning to nearby targets. If you have never tried this combination, again, you're going to have to farm the Pale Heart to get this. Get the caster frame version of this, and I'm telling you, head to altars or head to your favorite mission. Just watch what happens. It's going to be self-explanatory. Heavy attack, and now here we go. If you don't think that that's cool, I don't know if you're going to think anything I ever talk about is cool. That is just sweet to be wrapped in a shield of protection and then being able to chain lightning to other enemies as you run past them without having to use anything from your inventory. I mean, that's enough of a reason to make it S tier. And oh, by the way, it does still hit hard. I mean, you see what kind of damage I'm doing? 5,000 per hit, and if I'm chaining lightning, I mean, it's dealing 5,000 on the chains too. That one was 7,000. So pick up an Ergo Sum caster frame with the Arc Conductor. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. You can figure out a way to work it into your builds, and if swords do make it onto the artifact in the future, this undoubtedly being a special ammo sword will make it into my rotations on a very regular basis. Getting in next, Arcane Embrace. This legendary arc shotgun features a hard-hitting 2-round burst, which is a first of its kind unless you want to consider rapid-fire shotguns to be, you know, something that you can control as a 2-round burst. But this is going to have better damage than those. It can come with Vol Shot and Threat Detector. It is extremely potent, so if you do find yourself in front of a beefy enemy, you can unload a couple of rounds or the whole mag if you want, although the rounds per minute is 62, which means it's more for like a burst DPS in, you know, a pinch type situation. Once you reload, you get Vol Shot. So theoretically, if you do have a few beefy enemies in front of you, you kill one, you reload, you kill the next one, you're going to be proccing Jolt with this as well. Add on to that Search Party. This weapon gains faster aim down sights, speed and movement speed while aiming down sights while no allies are near. If you are by yourself, you can put on a backup mag, max out the stability, or even the handling would be good. You don't have to worry about damage fall off with steady rounds. You can see it's at a healthy range of 64, impact being at 70, so you can afford the small bore. Or if you really want, if you're just going to be using it periodically, you can opt to a full bore, which brings your range to over 70. But as far as clean weapons go, I mean, it even sounds cool. You know, so the fact that you can proc Jolt, I mean, there you go, right there. You see the area effect damage that it can provide, although you can use other weapons for ad clear, but that's it right there. You know, I mean, it doesn't hit insanely hard to where I'd recommend using this in a boss DPS fashion, but it hits hard enough to where this gun is extremely relevant in onslaught activities, some of your favorite nightfall strikes, possibly a GM if the surge suits, and you get some bonus damage to shotguns in general in that particular activity. But this is a S tier arc shotgun for sure. Between the Vol Shot, the ability to get you amplified, good impact, decent rage, and by the way, it's a 2-shot. Basically, it's a semi-automatic 2-shot weapon. If you haven't tried to mess around with this weapon or incorporate it into some of your builds, I recommend doing it. And oh, by the way, if it does fit into the artifact mods as well for stunning champions, it makes this weapon even more of a monster. Next up on this list, Trinity Ghoul Combat Bow. Fans of Arc will completely understand why I have this still in the S tier. It hasn't been as potent as it once was, simply because bows haven't been meta in a long time. But its lightning rod trait, precision kills grant the next shot chain lightning capabilities, makes this thing a monster at ad clear. So general activities, onslaughts, and Altars of Sorrow, you can safely equip this and wipe out a group of adds in virtually no time. Its intrinsic trait, Split Electron, fires an arrow that splits when released, aiming down sight and fully drawing the bow both decrease the spread. You can further enhance that with the Catalyst. Lightning Rod now triggers from any arc damage final blow. That means it doesn't have to be precision anymore. It just needs to be a kill. Just watch. If you haven't dusted off Trinity Ghoul, you haven't picked it up, you haven't used it, or you don't understand the hype behind it, all you got to do is watch what I'm doing here. With beefier enemies, it's going to be challenging. There's no doubt about that. But with the lightning rod aspect of this, you can fire in the ground near the vicinity of enemies and still proc it. So if you've been putting off getting used to or acquainted with Trinity Ghoul, I mean, you see, it's not like it's hitting weak either. I mean, it's doing 4,000 per arrow and you're shooting multiple arrows at once. It's still worth, you know, the amount of effort it'll take to level this thing up, get used to it, try to work it into a build or what have you. But the chain lightning capabilities make this thing absolutely ridiculous. Well, that one I mistimed, but you get the idea. It's still S tier. It's still powerful. And, I mean, watching everything go up in a bolt of lightning is just, I mean, I can't really describe it. It's right. It's what you would consider to be a literal lightning rod. Alrighty, next up on this list, the Divinity Trace Rifle. You can get this as a special quest in the raid Garden of Salvation. Its trait, Penance, targets under the effects of Judgment long enough are struck with a burst of damage, and Judgment, sustained damage with this weapon, envelopes the target in a field that weakens and stuns them. Strong against Overload champions, so it has intrinsic ability to stun Overload champions. Now, the rumor has it, in Heresy, Trace Rifles are going to be getting a buff in utility, which means weapons like Divinity may start making their rounds back again in some of your favorite endgame activities and possibly in raids. When it first came out, if I'm not mistaken, it was either 30 or 35% critical damage bonus that you used to get once you had procced Judgment, which made this a staple in most raid fire teams. Since then, it's been nerfed down to 15%, but I think in order to get this in line with the meta, it will eventually have to be brought back up in line with others, which is why Bungie came out with the announcement, now that I'm thinking about it, that Trace Rifles will be getting a rework, making them more user-friendly. Not that they're hard to use, but they're going to be more brought into the quote-unquote meta with damage ability. But having that bubble around an enemy is pretty awesome to see. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to proc it against this guy. I'm going to try here. Nope, I wasn't able to proc it, but when you stay on point long enough on a target, you get the bubble that anyone can shoot anywhere in the bubble, and it will deal critical damage. It's got excellent ammo economy, honestly, and it can proc ionic traces. It just doesn't have a place in the meta right now outside of endgame activities where someone wants to run Divinity, proc that bubble, and give their fire team bonus DPS with every shot. So this is a perfect weapon for a support player who may not necessarily want or may not always be the most aggressive type, but still wants to be able to contribute to the fire team in a very meaningful way. That 15% bonus damage that you can do is absolutely worth it. And Guardians everywhere will always welcome someone that has Divinity. So if you haven't gone through the quest steps to get Divinity, I highly recommend getting a group of friends together or searching out a Sherpa either on social media or the Fireteam Finder to help get you this weapon. Next up, an oldie but goodie Thunderlord machine gun. This one probably doesn't need a lot of introduction to many people, but we're going to go through it. Lightning rounds. This weapon fires faster and more accurately the longer the trigger is held. Continuous damage generates stunning lightning strikes. Also, its intrinsic trait, Rain Havoc. Final blows with this weapon generate stunning lightning strikes from above. It also has the intrinsic to stun overload champions. So you could take this into a Master Lost sector, not having any artifact perks behind you, and still be able to stun overloads with this weapon. Its additional catalyst, causing a lightning strike from this weapon, partially reloads the magazine from reserves. It's a staple in a lot of DPS rotations for raids. Whether you're a Warlock, Hunter, or Titan, it doesn't matter. It's an extremely easy weapon to use. Very satisfying to watch the lightning strikes happen all over the battlefield. And there you go. I just procced one by just tapping the trigger. You wouldn't use this to clear ads, although you're more than welcome to if you really feel like you want to spend your heavy ammo. But, I mean, 7,000 rounds per hit, one of the highest hits that I've done in any of these build video testings, for a single weapon. Like a machine gun, it's still king of all machine guns. It can generate ionic traces, it can chain lightning, it can refund ammo to the magazine. It's really the king still. It just is. So if machine guns ever make it to the meta as far as the artifact perk goes, and I know you guys are tired of hearing me say that, but if machine guns end up on the artifact, I'm telling you, this weapon's going to get dusted off if it hasn't been used in a while, and there's going to be a lot of people using this for a lot of builds. So if you don't have the Catalyst finished yet, go finish the Catalyst. If you don't have Thunderlord yet, go talk to Banshee and pick it up. It is a weapon you will use probably forever unless they nerf this thing into the ground, which I don't anticipate happening. Next up on this list is going to be the Grand Overture machine gun. Now, fans of Vesper's Host, the dungeon, will be able to tell you that this weapon is a staple in their final boss DPS phase. The main key here is that you can proc missiles that you can use to further add damage. This is the Cabal weapon that everybody hates. When you get hit with that stereotypical Cabal weapon, that Cabal machine gun, this is the weapon that you are getting hit by. You can see I started the encounter so I could get 20 missiles loaded. That is the max that you can get from this. Its intrinsic trait, Wrath of Colossus, heavy slug launcher that charges then fires full auto while the trigger is held. It is not that hard to keep this thing on target because it fires so slow, but it's Omega Strike, landing hits with this slug launcher to load missiles, long press, and then fire to launch several missiles in a volley. You don't have to get kills with this thing to proc Omega Strike. With the Catalyst, you'll get a bonus to handling and stability as well. Missile explosions will blind combatants. Those defeated by missile impacts then explode. I'm going to give you a quick visual of what this looks like. So I am going to long press. All right, volley ready. Here we go. I mean, when you're facing one-on-one versus a boss and you launch that volley at that boss, those missiles will track right to that boss. And, I mean, the boss is going to be taking some ridiculous damage. So here we go. Boom. 25,000 per hit, and those weren't even all landed on those enemies. Grand Overture is being used more and more for people who want to finish that final encounter for Vesper's Host. So if you haven't dusted this off or you haven't gotten that sign yet to pull this out of storage and try to use it in a endgame activity, I highly recommend you get used to it. Bring it to Altars of Sorrows and just get used to the firing mechanism. It's not like regular machine guns. It takes time to charge up. But if machine guns ever enter the meta as far as the artifact goes with champion stunning capabilities, you're going to see this thing show up in a lot of arc builds and possibly a lot of regular builds that don't involve arc at all. It's just an amazing DPS weapon to have, and you can store up to 70 rounds in it with armor ammo mods. So just something to keep in mind. Next up on the list, I've got Come to Pass Auto Rifle. Now, this may shock some people. It is not the strongest perk pool to choose from. However, it can roll with triple tap as well as Dragonfly. Now, in an arc-specific situation, those are two very good things to have. You get a 32-round magazine. It's a 360-round per minute weapon, so it hits like a truck. It's got excellent range, very good reload speed, and excellent recoil direction. You can also put on a backup mag and further boost this with a flared mag well to 38 rounds. The reason I like this is twofold. First is its PvE capabilities. Anytime you can proc Dragonfly, you know you're going to be taking out adds in virtually no time. The second reason is the Psycho Hack origin trait. Sustained damage from this weapon lowers the target's damage output for a short duration. Now again, auto rifles haven't been meta since they were last featured on the artifact. Kvastov, being the exotic kinetic weapon that came with the final shape, was the last meta auto rifle that we've had in quite some time, honestly. So people took advantage of that. But Come to Pass also has a special place in my heart for Crucible. If you want to talk about a weapon that can theoretically hit from anywhere on the map, it can delete guardians in virtually 3 to 4 shots if you land all precision hits. That makes this thing, with its no recoil, I mean, just look at the recoil on this thing. I mean, do the math. You can win some major distance one-on-one gun battles with some of those savvy scout rifle users anywhere in Crucible. And also, because it is an arc weapon, you have the ability to periodically generate ionic traces in an arc class, which gives you additional ability energy back. And being able to detonate Dragonfly, again, it's just one of the best add clear perks that you can have because there's no cooldown to using it. Which means, theoretically, if you are accurate enough with this thing, you will always be proccing Dragonfly, which means it doesn't matter that this is a 360 round weapon. The ability to clear out adds with very few shots means that the ammo that you are conserving can be used to further deal heavy damage, again, for a kinetic ammo weapon, to the rest of the field. So if you haven't checked out Come to Pass, you can get it from the exotic mission rotators that filter through. So make sure you're checking out the loot tables. You can get this from those and then craft it with Dragonfly and whatever other perks you think might help you. But this thing can be used in PvE and PvP with equal success. Next up, we got Crux Termination 4 Rocket Launcher. This is one of those weapons that drops from Warlord's Ruin. I've also seen it drop from Engram Redemption, from Zur, Rahul, and very, very rarely Banshee. It is a random drop as far as perks go, so if you are lucky enough to get it with Reconstruction and Bipod, understand that you can get 4 rounds into the magazine of this arc rocket launcher, which means you can pair this with an arc class, and hopefully you're lucky enough to get impact casing. This thing absolutely decimates, and on final kills, which you wouldn't use this for ad clear anyways, you have a chance to create experimental submunitions at the target's location, so you have a way to generate even more damage with this weapon. When I don't want to use an exotic rocket launcher, I put Crux Termination on. Heck, I will run Crux over some exotic rocket launchers simply because of its ability to give me 4 rounds in my magazine, which means I can well, rapid fire for a rocket launcher this at an enemy. So if you haven't gotten a good Crux Termination, or you're wondering if there's any rocket launchers out there legendary that are arc, and you don't want to grind for an adept hothead, or you don't like the blowout rocket launcher from Crucible, I recommend Crux Termination because honestly it's better than both of them. So I'm going to fire it a couple of times just so you can see, but I'm telling you, take this thing to Altars of Sorrow and get to work. 3 and 4. So 4 rounds, and every time you reload with bipod on, you're going to reload 2 rounds into the magazine. You won't do that with anything that doesn't have bipod. So with the reconstruction on top of that, it just makes this thing even more disgusting to use. Next up on my list, last but not least, the Hula Grenade Launcher. If you've seen any of my previous build videos, you know that I love this thing. It's got field prep and chain reaction. If you are lucky enough to have one of these in your inventory, pull it out and start using it. Enjoy the carnage that's going to ensue with your ability to do about 50,000 per hit to bosses, as well as 50,000 per hit to all adds. And you can see why I love this thing so much. I mean, 2 shots killed the Cyclops, 1 shot killed the heavy, 1 shot killed all of the adds. Oh, just kidding, I lied, my bad. So I gotta fire another one. But either way, this thing is so ridiculously easy to use. I love to take this thing into onslaughts. I take it into Vanguard all the time. Because it's arc, you're gonna generate ionic traces. It's got that beautiful chain reaction look to it, so your screen is gonna be filled by lightning after lightning after lightning. If you are fortunate enough to have one of these in your inventory, but you haven't dusted it off in a while, this is your sign to do so. Dust you off a Hula Grenade Launcher and get to work. Alrighty, so that concludes my S tier weapons list for arc weapons. Certainly a number of those are going to be familiar to some might be new to some, and some may be scratching their heads going, what in the world is this guy thinking? But either way, it is all good. That is the point of these videos, is to get, to get ideas out there to help people better familiarize themselves with all the tools of the trade, so to speak, and let you guys know that, hey, in certain situations, you can absolutely start experimenting with these weapons if you've never tried them before. There's a lot of weapons out there that are going to be coming in the future that I'm sure are going to affect this list, so I know I'm going to have to revisit it. But I had a lot of fun. Arc was my very first subclass that I fell in love with when I first picked up Destiny, and it holds a special place in my heart. It's why I saved it till almost the end of this series. But if you guys did find anything helpful, or you resonated with anything I was saying, or even, know a guardian that might be in need of some new ideas or just some revamped ideas, please send them my way. Please consider liking and subscribing. Feel free to join in on my Discord as I bounce ideas off of everybody in there, because the videos are going to keep coming this year in 2025 as the new seasons unfold. I'm really excited, and I'm happy that you guys have chosen to look at my channel. And some of you are starting to rely on me for good ideas with builds, as well as this little video series on weapons. Next up is going to be Void. Void for sure holds a special place in a lot of Guardians' hearts, but if you've made it this far in the series, you owe it to yourself to see the last video, and I'm happy to take you there. So stick around. Thank you guys for the support. I will see you guys next time. Be safe out there. Take care.